I've been trying to call. I've been on my own for long enough. Maybe you can show me how to love. Maybe I'm going through withdrawals. You don't even have to do too much. You can turn me on with just a touch, baby. I look around and since it is cold and empty, no one's around to judge me. I can't see clearly when you're gone. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep right until I feel your heart touch. I said, ooh, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I trust. I'm running out of time, 'cause I can see the sun light up the sky. So I hit the road in overdrive, baby. Hit the road in overdrive. The city's cold and empty. No one's around to judge me. I can't see clearly when you're gone. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your heart touch. I said, ooh, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I trust. I'm coming back to let you know I can never say it all before. But whenever I let it go, this time I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. Feel free to be whoever you want to be. Feel free to dance, feel free to sing, just feel free. Feels like the world is picking on ya. Feels like it's picking on.
All right. Okay. Well, it's almost over, everybody. It's almost over. One game left in the 2023 campaign for the Tennessee Titans at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars in about 48 hours. Isn't it crazy? This season has mostly been horrible. I mean, this has been an awful season. And yet, I'm still going to be sad when it's over. I've spent the entire season saying, can this thing just end? I mean, can we just be done with this? And now that it's going to be over on Sunday, it's like, oh. I'm going to miss football. For sure, I'm going to miss Titans football, even as bad as it is sometimes. Welcome to the Two Tone Talk Podcast, episode 69, and right here live on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, and anywhere else you get your pods. The By God Pod. Man, we got a lot to talk about today. Yes, the Titans have a football game in 48 hours. Yes, the Titans are playing the Jaguars and probably, yes, need to lose. But there is a portion of the fan base who says, hey, it would be awesome to knock Jacksonville out of the playoffs, pay them back for last year. I'll talk about that later. But yes, that would be funny. I would giggle if we knocked the Jaguars out of the playoffs. But at the same time, looking at this thing long term, probably need to be thinking about draft picks. Soul Snatcher says, did you see Vrabel in his press conference? He went off. Is this a new press conference? I saw the one from the other day. I don't know if there's been another one where he went off since then. Chandler says, next season we're going to need a Wednesday midweek episode to complement Monday and Friday. That's a great idea, Chandler. That might be something we do next year. So let's talk about Vrabel. We spent a lot of time talking about Vrabel around here. So since Monday's episode, I mean, there's been a lot of rumors swirling. A lot of rumors that Vrabel wants out. A lot of rumors that maybe Vrabel and Ran Carthon are not on the same page. They don't have the same vision. A lot of rumors. Again, the rumor about him possibly going to coach the New England Patriots has come up again, and there have been numerous reports that have been put out over the last few days by different people insinuating that Vrabel's not happy in Nashville and that he wants out. Now, the idea is, people say so often, where there's smoke, there's fire. Where there's smoke, there's some kind of fire, whether it's a blazing inferno or just a small campfire. Where there's smoke, there is some sort of fire. And all of these reports coming out about Vrabel, I mean, there's gotta be something to it, right? I mean, maybe, but I will tell you this. In today's world, I'll be honest with you, sometimes where there's smoke, sometimes there's no fire. In today's world, with rumors and social media and the way things go, and people just trying to get clicks and likes and shares, sometimes where there's smoke, there's no fire. So, I mean, this all could be nonsense, but I will say this. It is numerous reports. It's not just one person. It's numerous reports, not by the most verified sources. I mean, it's not exactly Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport out here sharing this stuff. It's some people who might be insiders who have a blue check mark on Twitter, and so maybe, I don't know. Here's what we do know. As Soul Snatcher in the YouTube chat said, earlier this week, Vrabel was very fussy. I think it was Tuesday. Vrabel was very fussy. He was asked, I believe, why should the Titans try to win Sunday? You've been eliminated from the playoffs for a couple of weeks now. Why should the Titans try to win this game against Jacksonville? And you all know what Vrabel said. This is a family podcast. I can't even repeat it here. He pretty much said it sucks to lose. And he reiterated, you don't sleep when you lose. He used some language. Talked about how much he hates losing. And some people liked that. Some people didn't buy it. Some people thought it was performative. Some people thought it was genuine. I believe that was genuine. I believe that was genuine. I believe, however you feel about him as a coach, I do believe Vrabel hates losing. I do believe, as someone who used to play in the league, who knows what these players put their bodies through, I absolutely believe that Vrabel hates losing with a passion. I have no doubt that he was being sincere. I don't think Vrabel has it in him to put on a performance for reporters. I believe he was being genuine in that moment. But it does beg the question, if you hate losing so bad, then maybe we need to get some more talent in here. If you hate losing so bad, and it also begs the question, if Vrabel is getting that frustrated, if he hates losing that bad and he's getting that frustrated, is he putting some of the blame on ownership? Is he putting some of the blame on, Rand Carthon, the GM, or Amy Adams Strunk, the owner? This is just totally hypothetical. But, Vrabel has even said, when teams are losing, when you're not winning a lot, when you have seasons like this, it is very easy to start pointing fingers. It's human nature to get frustrated and point fingers and place blame and get angry and get frustrated and get mad. How mad is he? Who's he mad at? Is he just mad in general? Is he mad at some of the players? Is he mad at himself? Is he mad at ownership? Is he mad at Rand? Is he mad at some of the other coaches? Who's the anger directed at? I don't know. One thing I do know is that it was a couple of days ago that the reports started coming out that Vrabel wanted to get out of there. It was a couple of days ago that the reports came out that Vrabel's looking to leave, and he was asked about it. And kudos to the reporter that asked him. Hey, you see the stuff on social media? You see the stuff that people are saying? What do you think? What do you say? And Vrabel said, I want to be here. This was, I believe, Wednesday. Vrabel said, I want to be here. I want to be here as long as we're winning, is actually what he said. Let me reiterate that because that could be a key point. Vrabel said, I want to be here as long as we're winning. They haven't been winning in over a year. So I don't know if I'm reading too much into that statement, but that's what he said. Verbatim, I want to be here as long as we're winning. They're 5-11. And also, some people took what Vrabel said. He went on and on about how, he talked about internet rumors. He talked about Santa Claus. He talked about the Easter Bunny. He talked about a lot of different things. But he said, that you shouldn't believe internet rumors, right? So that would indicate that he's saying it's a bunch of nonsense. That's naturally what he's saying. But I don't take him saying, oh, this is nonsense, it's just internet rumors. That doesn't mean automatically that there isn't some truth to it, because he's a head coach in the NFL. What is he supposed to say? What is he supposed to say when he's asked about that in a press conference? Yeah, I want out. I would like to leave. I don't want to be here. Is he supposed to say that? Of course he's not going to say that. Of course he's not. Let's not put it past Vrabel to say something's not going to happen and then it happens. Do you remember 2 years ago where 2 days before A.J. Brown was traded, he went on the Rich Eisen show and said, and I quote, as long as I'm the head coach of this team, A.J. Brown will not be traded. That's what he said. And 2 days later, A.J. Brown was traded. Now, I understand that was John Robinson's decision. So I'm not saying that was just Vrabel changing his mind. I think Vrabel thought, surely we can't be that stupid to trade A.J. Brown, and then we were. But either way, there have been coaches all the time who have said something's not going to happen. Connor Kills just said it in the chat. I was literally about to say that. Remember Nick Saban, when he was the head coach of the Miami Dolphins? He said, I will not be the coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide. He said, I will not. I am going to be here. I'm done with this discussion and rumors. I'm not leaving. And literally within days, he was in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, being announced as the new head coach of the Alabama. Listen. Just because he stood up there and said, this is where I want to be, I don't want to leave, blah, 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 that doesn't automatically mean that he's telling the truth. This is the NFL. It's a business, and sometimes people say things aren't going to happen, and then they happen. Sometimes people say things are going to happen and then they don't. You know? Here's what I will say about Amy Adams Strunk, the owner of this team. Let me throw out a name to you, Titans fans, maybe a name that you haven't heard in a while. Maybe a name that you forgot. The name Mike Mularkey. Does that ring a bell? Mike Mularkey, who was the head coach of the Titans right before Mike Vrabel. He was the coach up until Vrabel was hired. Do you remember what happened right before Mike Mularkey was fired? The Titans had just made their first playoff appearance in a decade. Not only that, the Titans had just won their first playoff game in like 15 years at Kansas City. That had just happened. Mike Mularkey was the head coach of this team when that happened. Then we lost to New England in the divisional round. We actually got killed. Brady literally killed us in the divisional round. Okay. And then Mike Mularkey was fired. You would think his job would have been safe and secure. You just coached the team to the playoffs for the first time in a decade. You just won your first playoff game in 15 years. Surely your job is safe and secure. He was fired days later. You want to know why? Does anybody remember why? Does anybody know the story why? Here's why. Because the Titans offense, despite making the playoffs, the Titans offense was pretty bad that year. Pretty bad. Pretty tough to watch. Probably not as bad as it's been this year, but it was still bad. And Amy Adams Strunk wanted to make a change. Namely, she wanted to get a new offensive coordinator. She wanted to get rid of Terry Robisky, who was the offensive coordinator at that time. She wanted to get rid of him. She wanted to change the scheme. She wanted to change the offensive mindset. She wanted to make some changes on the staff, and Mike Mularkey refused. Mike Mularkey refused to do it, and as a consequence of that, he was fired. I mean, what a gutsy thing to do. You just fired the coach who coached you to the playoffs for the first time in a decade because he wasn't willing to change his staff. It was the right thing to do. The Titans, I mean, that was their peak. With the mindset that they had at that time, what they did that season was as good as it was going to get. Get to the playoffs, maybe, squeak in, get a miraculous victory, maybe. That was like the Super Bowl for us. And she knew it. If you don't make changes on this offensive staff, you're gone. And he was gone. Mike Mularkey chose to die on that hill. Not changing my staff. I'm not changing my offensive scheme. I'm not getting rid of Terry Robisky. Okay, well, you're fired then. Then they bring in Vrabel. Now, I say all of that to say, Amy Adams Strunk has made drastic moves before. Just as recent as last year, she fired John Robinson in the middle of the season. And at the time she fired John Robinson, the Titans were 7-5 on top of the AFC South by a good 3 games at that point, and she still fired him in the middle of the year. So we know Amy Adams Strunk is not going to be, she's not a prisoner of the moment. She's not just going to look at things and say, oh, well, we're winning, so therefore everything's okay. I mean, we're not winning right now. But even in times where we were in the past, she still wasn't fooled by it. She knew we've got to do something else to take the next step. Now, I have no doubt there are conversations had between ownership and the head coach and everything that are not had until the season is over. You wait till the season's over. Well, the season's going to be over in 2 days. And once the season is over, what happens if they go sit in a room and she looks at Mike Vrabel and says, you're going to have to make some changes here on your staff? I mean, maybe your coordinators, the overall approach offensively, the scheme, the game plan that we keep having, like we got to change it. We got a new stadium being built. We got to be good. You've got to change some of this. What happens if Vrabel does the same thing that Mularkey did? What happens if Vrabel says, no, I'm not changing anything? I'm not changing the game plan. I'm not updating the game plan. I'm not updating the scheme. We're going to keep things the way they are. We're going to keep trying to run that football, baby. We're going to keep trying to take undrafted guys off of the practice squad and turn them into Cinderella. If he does that, I think all options are on the table. Now, I don't know if he's going to do that. I think Amy wants Vrabel to be the coach. I do. But if he tries to pull too much of this stubborn, set in his ways type stuff, we've seen it before. She'll pull the trigger if she feels the need. As far as there being friction between Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon, keep in mind we really have no proof of that. We have no proof that there's actual friction between the two of them. We have no proof of that at all. But if there is, you got to get that under control right now. I don't know if it's to the point where it would be like one of you's got to go, but if there is friction, before we get into this offseason where we have all of this cap space and a high draft pick, before we get into all of that, let's get this situated right now. Because if there is friction between the two of them, you can't go forward with that. You have to either fix it or fire somebody. So my gut feeling is, I still say Vrabel is going to be the head coach next year. That's my gut feeling. I still say I would be surprised if Vrabel is not the coach of the Tennessee Titans when they kick off in September. I would be surprised. But with that being said, I also said that there was no way John Robinson was getting fired, especially in the middle of the season, and I was wrong. I also said there's no way we're trading A.J. Brown, and I was wrong. I also said there's no way we're firing Mike Mularkey after a playoff year where we actually won a playoff game, and I was wrong. I've been wrong before. And with these reports coming out and the way things look, with the possibility of where there's smoke, there's fire with Vrabel, hey, my mind is much more open to the possibility that maybe something could happen. Maybe there's going to be a conversation had on Monday or Tuesday where Amy says, hey, we're going to have to part ways with you. I still don't think it's likely, but it's probably a little more possible than I would have thought 2 weeks ago. Do I think Vrabel needs to be back? I mean, listen, I'm not as down on Vrabel as some of you. I'm not as high on Vrabel as some of you. I think there are some things that Vrabel does really well. I think there are some things that Vrabel, is very good at. I think if put in the right situation, Vrabel can be a very successful coach in the NFL. He's proven that. He was the coach of the year 2 years ago. I also think that he can be very stubborn. My personal opinion, I think that he has a certain way that he wants it done, and I'm not seeing a lot that would convince me that he's willing to change it. But I will say this, though. We have to acknowledge, no matter how you feel about Vrabel, whether you want him back, whether you want him gone, this roster's bad. This current roster is bad. I compiled a list of, I think, 4 guys on this team right now that I think other teams would look at and say, we really want him. I said Derrick Henry, DeAndre Hopkins, Harold Landry, Danico Autry, Jeffrey Simmons. So 5 guys. Autry, Simmons, Landry, Hopkins, Henry. I could think of 5 guys that other teams in the NFL on this roster, other teams in the NFL would look at and say, man, wish I had him. 5 guys on this roster. 5 out of 53. It's a bad roster. I've said it time and time again. Nobody has played more undrafted guys this year than the Titans. Nobody has started more undrafted guys this year than the Titans. So I think if you are a fan who says, well, if we had a better coach, we'd be winning, you need a dose of reality. The roster's bad. It's just bad. And to think that another coach would somehow make it not bad, I think is incorrect. To think that if we had a different coach that this season would have gone differently, I think is incorrect. With the left tackle position the way it is, with the offensive line the way it is, bring in any coach you want to. In my opinion, it's not going to work. With this secondary full of undrafted guys who were pulled off of practice squads, you bring in any coach you want to. It's not going to matter. Bring in any coach you want. And I said this last week. There are coaches right now who are getting ready to coach in the playoffs. Some of them might even go far in the playoffs, who I believe are not even that good of coaches. They've got talent galore on their team, and it makes them look better than they are. Having talented players is the most important thing that you can have. More important than a good coach, more important than good coordinators. Having unbelievable talent on your team, having great talent on your team will bail you out most times. And there are some coaches right now who are getting ready to coach into the playoffs who are getting bailed out because they have unbelievable talent on their team. So don't think that it's solely a coaching problem is why the Titans were bad this year. No, they don't have good... I hate to say it because it sounds awful, but they don't have the talent that other teams have. It's not even close. They're starting a bunch of undrafted guys. And I'm not talking about the last couple of weeks when we were eliminated from playoff contention, so they put a bunch of guys on IR. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about from the start. I'm talking about week 1. The lineup we put out there, it's a bunch of guys who were either getting one more chance to prove themselves, or it's guys who were drafted late or not drafted at all. You have to acknowledge that. No matter how you feel about Vrabel, there is truth to the fact that this is a bad roster. Now, we have to talk about why it's a bad roster. Well, John Robinson obviously played a huge part in that. John Robinson is a leading culprit. But, do we just use him as a scapegoat? Because that seems easy to do. Seems very easy to blame everything on the guy that's not here anymore because, that's just a easy way out. But he is guilty, though. He did do it. But we can't say Vrabel's innocent. We can't say Amy's innocent. Rand hasn't been here very long, so we might could let him off the hook. But, a lot of this season came down to they were depending on Andre Dillard to come in and be the solution at left tackle, and he wasn't. They were banking on Aaron Brewer to be an adequate replacement for Ben Jones, and he hasn't been. They were banking on, Treylon Burks to really take that big leap from year 1 to year 2. He regressed. They were banking on Chigo Okonkwo to take that big leap from year 1 to year 2. And until about 3 weeks ago, he was regressing. They were banking on Christian Fulton to have a big year in his contract year. He didn't. They were banking on a lot of things. They were banking on Alshire and Gibby to be adequate replacements for David Long and Jayon Brown and the other guys we've had, and they weren't. They're not bad, but they're just aight. That's what this team is. They're full of a bunch of guys like that. And this offseason right here, this offseason is going to tell the story to me. In my opinion, if Vrabel stays, and my gut feeling is he will, this offseason is going to tell the story. With the money and the draft picks, this offseason will tell you how much blame Vrabel deserves because they have the opportunity to go out and fix a lot of this through free agency trades in the draft. They have the opportunity to go out and fix a lot of what's broken in one offseason. Maybe not everything, but a whole bunch of it. They can fix this offseason. And if they don't, well, then we got problems much bigger than John Robinson. If they come back out next year still with a team full of undrafted hard workers who, busted their butt to make the 53-man roster from the practice squad, then we have problems that are bigger than John Robinson. If they come out next year and the wide receiving core is not much better and the offensive line's not much better, then okay, we have bigger problems than John Robinson. This offseason is going to tell you the story. And one group's either going to be right or wrong. The group that says Vrabel needs to go, they're going to be proven right or wrong this offseason. The group that says Vrabel's the man, going to be proven right or wrong this offseason, in my opinion. If he stays, which I think he will. But as it stands right now, this roster that we had this year was not up to par. We know that. And I still think Vrabel deserves the benefit of the doubt. If Vrabel looked at all of us and said, what was I supposed to do with this group right here? What was I supposed to do? He would have a point. He would have a good point. That's fair. But, we'll see what happens Monday. I mean, Sunday's the game, and then Monday is usually the day. I mean, that's probably the day that you'll see Ron Rivera fired from Washington. That's probably the day. He's still there. He hadn't been fired yet, has he? That's the day you'll see some coaches fired. You'll see some coordinators let go. And that's the day I'm sure a discussion will be had. If there is friction, there'll be a discussion had about the future, really, whether there's friction or not. There's going to be a discussion had on Monday about the future and how to fix this. And I'm not sure what happens if indeed they get in there and don't agree about the future outlook for this team. What happens then? Well, I have no idea. But I'm going to grab my popcorn and I'm going to sit here and watch the show and see what happens. My gut feeling is still that nothing's going to happen. One thing is for sure. It is very possible that this Sunday could be the final game in a Titans uniform for an all-time Titans great, Derrick Henry. This Sunday could very well be it. Who knows? Anything could happen. He could come back on a team-friendly deal. But odds are this could be it. So at the end of the show today, we're about to do the power rankings, but at the end of the show today, I am going to talk about my top 10 Derrick Henry plays with the Titans at the end of the show. But for right now, this is 32-1. Two-Tone Talk Power Rankings. This is just based on how I see it. This is based on what I think as we go into this final week. Let's do it. Bottom three, I've flip-flopped the bottom two here. I got the Panthers back at 32, not just because of what's happening on the field, but because of what's happening off the field with their owner throwing beer on the fans. You deserve to be last in the league. Number 31, the Commanders. We put them back at 31. They're much more competitive with Jacoby Brissett. And good news for the Titans, because the Commanders very well may be going quarterback in the draft, which would open up those tackles and some receivers for them to take, for the Titans to take. And then at number 30, we've got the Chargers. The Chargers are just horrible. I mean, they're Chargers are longing for the offseason, maybe even more than the Titans. But the Titans need the Chargers to somehow win against the Chiefs. Chiefs playing their backups too. Who knows? Let's get into the 20s here. 29, the Patriots. Patriots have been much more competitive late in the year. They hung in there with the Bills on Sunday better than I thought they would, but they're at 29. The Titans, I think this is their lowest ranking of the year. I mean, they fall a couple spots to 28. That showing against Houston Sunday was just embarrassing. So they dropped to 28. The Jets are at 27. You know, the Jets are pretty much usually going to be competitive because of that defense. And what a bummer of a year for them. Number 26, the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals take a little jump up the list because they beat the Eagles. And, you know, I think the Cardinals have a decision to make this offseason about Kyler Murray. Do you stick with him? Do you go away? I don't know. Number 25, the Giants. The Giants have been competitive down the stretch, but ultimately, you know, with Tyrod Taylor, they couldn't figure out how to beat the Rams. Actually, they had it, but they missed the field goal, and there it is. Giants have some decisions to make this offseason as well. Number 24, the Minnesota Vikings, who took one on the chin Sunday night. They're still technically, I need to correct myself. On Monday, I said the Vikings were eliminated from playoff contention. They are not eliminated. There's still some ways they could get into the playoffs, but it's one of those, like, they need to win, and then they need a bunch of other stuff to happen. We'll see, but the Vikings are 24. They looked just like they're ready for the offseason on Sunday. Number 23, the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons are still alive. They still have a pulse in the NFC South, but man, they got whooped by Chicago the other day, and the Falcons are to a point where, I mean, they've got to go quarterback in the first round. I mean, they're going to have top 10 pick most likely, and so, you know, you look at, obviously, I don't think they're going to be high enough to take a guy like Caleb Williams, Drake May. I don't even think they're going to be high enough to take Jaden Daniels from LSU, but, you know, Michael Penix put in quite a performance the other night. I think he'll go top 10 now. I think Bo Nix is another guy. So we'll see. Number 22, the Cincinnati Bengals. They take a pretty significant drop. Bengals eliminated from playoff contention, which is crazy to think about. Preseason, I mean, they were Super Bowl contenders in a lot of people's minds. I know the Burrow injury happened, but to think that the Bengals are not even going to be in the playoffs this year, that's wild. Number 21, the Raiders. Raiders just, I still think that the Raiders are a quarterback away from being a very dangerous team, especially if the Chiefs keep kind of on that downward slope next year. Number 20, the Bears. I think this is probably the highest ranking for the Bears on this list this year. But I'm telling you, the Bears, and I've seen people making this comparison, the Bears remind me a lot of the Lions last year. You remember the Lions missed the playoffs, but they ended the season looking so good that it sent them into the offseason with a lot of momentum. The Bears kind of remind me of that. I mean, I'm leaning toward the fact they're probably going to stick with Justin Fields, and they're probably going to draft Marvin Harrison first overall and get him a receiver in there. That's my gut feeling about what's going to happen, because the Bears have looked really good here late in the season. They're already eliminated from playoff contention. They're not going to make the playoffs, but they really have a lot to be excited about, I think, going into next year. Number 19, the Saints. The Saints put a whooping on the Bucks, and so the Saints stay alive not only in the NFC South, but in the NFC as a whole. They can still grab a wild card spot. So the Saints are alive going into the last week. Saints have looked better, so we'll see what happens with them. It might be too far out of reach. Number 18, the Broncos. I'm going to keep the Broncos right where they were. They're not going to the playoffs, but They beat the Chargers, which is what they're supposed to do, so I'll keep the Broncos at 18. Number 17, the Seattle Seahawks. They take a little dip down the list here this week. They looked awful against Pittsburgh, but with that being said, well, they're not in a win and in. They need a little help, but Seattle very much alive in the playoff hunt. Number 16, the Pittsburgh Steelers. 2 weeks ago, I had given up on the Steelers. The Steelers looked so bad, but man, what is this Mason Rudolph? Mason Rudolph has come in and totally reinvigorated this Steelers team, and they look dang good with him. To the point where Kenny Pickett, the original starter, is ready to go, and they're still going to stick with Mason Rudolph. I mean, this is crazy. I didn't expect him to look this good, but the Steelers. I believe the Steelers are they winning in? They play tomorrow night against the Ravens backups. Are the Steelers winning in, or do they need help? I don't know. But the Steelers, they're very much alive. Number 15, the Colts. As I said, the Colts are fighters, man. The Colts won a game that I didn't think they were going to win. They've got a huge game tomorrow night against the Houston Texans. Winners in the playoffs, losers going home. And not only is the winner in the playoffs, but the winner is still alive to win our division. So, Colts, I mean, just especially knowing Gardner Minshew has been starting most of the year, I think the Colts are much better than anybody would have thought. And I think Gardner Minshew is going to be starting somewhere next year. Number 14, the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are winning in. They're winning in this weekend. The Packers, got to give it to Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love and the crew there. They have salvaged their season in a way that I would not have thought. Number 13, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I had them in the top 10 last week. They took one on the chin on Sunday, but even in spite of that, the Bucs are winning in this weekend, and they are playing the Carolina Panthers. If the Bucs do not win the NFC South, it will be one of the all-time choke jobs that we have seen. Number 12, the Houston Texans. Texans, I think, Texans, in spite of being as banged up as they are, I mean, I have said I believe Kevin Stefanski should be the coach of the year in Cleveland, but I mean, Ryans for Houston, he deserves to be in the running too. And we'll see what happens tomorrow night between the Texans and the Colts. I hope they beat each other to death. Number 11, the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars finally got a win without Trevor Lawrence. I don't know what the status is for Trevor Lawrence on Sunday, but the Jags finally get the win. They are in a position, I mean, it's all or nothing. I think if the Jags win over the Titans, then they win the AFC South. But if they slip up and lose, they could miss the playoffs altogether. So I still think the Jags, they haven't proven anything, I think, over the last month. Just because you beat Carolina, that doesn't mean a thing to me. Okay, now we go to the top 10. Some of you are going to disagree with this, but here we go. Number 10, the Rams. The Rams stay in the top 10. They got another win. The Rams are going to the playoffs. They're resting starters this week. They've clinched a playoff berth. You already know what I'm going to say about the Rams. You don't want to play these guys in the playoffs. I'm telling you. Rams are they're a sleeper team. Number 9, the Chiefs. The Chiefs slipped back into the top 10. They've now won a couple in a row over the Patriots. Or it was the Patriots game last week? No, they beat the Patriots, and then they lost to the Raiders on Christmas Day, and then they beat the Bengals. Chiefs, it's just with the Chiefs being who they are, even as bad as they've been for much of this year, I'm not going to count them out. I mean, just because they've been there, they've done that, and it would be just like the Chiefs after this bad year to go on a run and win the whole thing. Number 8, as we continue to climb the top 10, how about the Eagles at 10? Can I talk about the Eagles for a second? Just real quick. Philadelphia Eagles have fallen on hard times. Yeah, I mean, they've lost 4 of their last 5. Lost to the 4-12 Arizona Cardinals on Sunday at home. And it's hilarious to me because AJ is like at the center of all of this. Like, he's got a bad attitude and he's got all this stuff. And it's funny to me because I have Eagles media stuff pop up on my Twitter all the time. AJ talked to the media 2 days ago, I think. Thank you for blessing us with your words, because you pitched a fit and didn't talk to the media for 2 weeks in a row, and now you finally decided you were going to be a big boy and talk to the people who you're paid to talk to. And so he said all the right things. AJ said all the right things. I'm good with the coaches. I'm good with the players. We're going to be fine. Whatever. He said all this. He said what he needed to say, what you would expect. And Eagles media took that and were like, did this speech by A.J. Brown just save the season? It's like, bro, it's a locker room press conference. Like a locker room press conference where he pretty much said the basic things that everybody knew he was going to say. And you guys are acting like MLK just delivered the I Have a Dream speech. I mean, you guys are acting like it's just life-changing. You know? And then that same media were like, great news, everybody. This is I'm not making this up. They said, good news, everybody. A.J. Brown took some of the team captains to an escape room last week as a team building exercise. This could be huge in the playoffs. I'm just going to let that. He took them to an escape room as a team building exercise, and this is supposed to be the game changer for the Eagles. An escape room. I saw a comment by an Eagles fan under that said, the fans need an escape room. That was funny. But it's just like, are we really, like, am I watching Secret Life of the American Teenager or something? Am I watching Degrassi? Like, they're having to do team building and having to all sit in a circle and apologize to each other. What is this, church camp? On candle night? Like, we all gonna sit around and share our feelings, and that's gonna save our season? The team building exercise to the escape room, was that before they went out and lost to the 4-12 Arizona Cardinals at home? Because I think it was before they went out and lost to the 4-12 Arizona Cardinals at home. The chat said, whatever it takes, baby. We're making the sacrifices to win in the playoffs. We're going to the escape room. Team building. Gosh, is this Michael Scott at Dunder Mifflin? Like, what are we doing? Team building in week 17? There are 2 weeks left of the now one, but when they went to the escape room, there are 2 weeks left of the season. Team building. Oh my gosh. The Eagles are at number 8. And the reason I have them above the Chiefs is because in spite of everything, with the talent that they have, with the roster that they have, they should be contenders. Maybe that escape room will do the trick. Number 7, the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins took one on the chin. I mean, they were feeling good about beating the Cowboys, and then they turned right around, and the Ravens just obliterated them. Ravens put up over 50 points. So the Dolphins, this was a comeback down to earth game, and I'm going to be honest with you, I think the Dolphins are not exactly going into the playoffs with momentum because they may not even win their division. They're playing Buffalo Sunday night for the division, and they're banged up. The Dolphins are banged up. Let's get to number 6 here. The Cowboys. Cowboys, with help from the referees. It's like in WWE, you know, when the bad guy has the referee help him, or the referee has their back turned while they use a chair or something. That's what the Cowboys did. And you know what? Because of that, at number 5, ahead of the Cowboys, I've got the Detroit Lions. Sue me. I've got the Lions ahead of the Cowboys in spite of the fact that the Cowboys beat the Lions, because they didn't beat the Lions. They were, I'm going to start, you know what? I'm going to start calling the Detroit Lions Bret Hart. I'm going to start referring to the Detroit Lions as Bret Hart because they got screwed. Number 4, the Browns. You know, you say whatever you want about the Browns and Joe Flacco, but they just keep on winning, baby. They just keep on winning games. Everybody else is doing team building exercises. Everybody else is winning one week, losing the next. Everybody else is trying to figure out, you know, if they're good or not. The Browns just keep on winning. They just keep on winning. They keep on beating people, beating good teams along the way, and people still sleeping on them. Number 3, bad news for the Dolphins. I got the Bills at number 3. The Bills have had one of the hardest schedules, but they're on a win streak. And they could get as high as the 2 seed, depending on what happens this weekend. I mean, the Bills have salvaged this season in a major way. Number 2, very predictable. The 49ers are at number 2. They got the win. They've clinched the 1 seed in the NFC. They're resting starters this weekend. Number 1, the Ravens. I mean, I said it Monday. If the Ravens don't make the playoff, or excuse me, obviously they're making the playoffs. If the Ravens don't win the Super Bowl, it will be one of the best teams to ever not win the Super Bowl. It will be something Ravens fans look back on forever and say, how did we not? I mean, you look at the resume that these Ravens have put together. I mean, they have not just obliterated everybody, except for the Browns. I mean, they've obliterated playoff teams. They killed the Lions. They killed the Seahawks. They killed the 49ers. They killed the Dolphins. I wouldn't want nothing to do with these Ravens. Hey, just curious. What happened the last time the Ravens had an awesome team, only had a couple losses, went to the playoffs, and everybody thought they were Super Bowl bound? What happened? Oh. Oh, yeah. Good memories. For those of you who are wondering what I'm talking about the last time the Ravens had an awesome team like this, the Titans came to town in the playoffs and sent them home. Gosh, that was such a great night. I mean, has there been a better night of Titans fandom in the last 10 years than that night? Oh, I couldn't even believe what I was watching. Let's make some picks, and then we'll talk a little bit about Derrick Henry. Steelers and the Ravens playing on Saturday night. I'm going to go Pittsburgh. Under normal circumstances, we would all pick the Ravens, but the Ravens are playing their backups, and the Steelers are playing for everything. I mean, this is it. They lose, they're out. So I'm going with the Steelers. I mean, I think Mike Tomlin was just made for stuff like this. Texans, Colts. Like I said, I wish they'd just beat each other to death, but I'm going to go Houston. I know the game's in Indianapolis. The Colts are gritty, but I mean, this is going to be every game that the Texans have played this year has been at noon on Sunday. They haven't had any primetime games, but they will Saturday night. This will be the first time that C.J. Stroud has played in prime time, and who knows if that'll be a good thing or a bad thing, but I just think the Texans win this game, and the Colts go home. The Bucs and the Panthers, I mean, the Bucs have to win. There's no way. I mean, literally, all you have to do is beat the Panthers and you win your division and host a playoff game. It had never been easier. The only time I've ever seen it be easier, you remember 2 years ago, the year the Titans had the 1 seed, the Colts, all they had to do was beat like the 2-14 Jaguars to make the playoffs, and they got killed. Gosh, that was funny. Only day I've ever cheered for the Jags. Bucs over the Panthers. Browns, Bengals. I mean, this game really doesn't have any bearings on anything. Browns are already in. Bengals are already out. I'll go with the Bengals because I'm pretty sure the Browns are going to be resting guys. Vikings, Lions. I think the Lions are resting guys. I don't know. I mean, there's a chance they could move up a spot. I'm going to go with the Lions either way. Are we going to see Hendon Hooker? If Jared Goff sets for Detroit, would Tennessee's Hendon Hooker, Tennessee Vols? Tennessee Volunteer fans are about to make me bang my head against the wall, by the way. There's Vols fans on Twitter calling for everyone to burn their Titans merch because they don't like Will Levis because he went to Kentucky. Children. I don't believe it's the majority of people doing it, by the way. I think most Vols fans are good, reasonable folks. Lions over the Vikings. Jets, Patriots. I'll go with the Patriots. In Foxborough. Probably, I mean, this could be the end of the Belichick era. This could be it. So it's only appropriate. You got to send them out with a win over the Jets. I mean, come on. Falcons, Saints. I mean, if the Bucs slip up and lose, this game would be for the division. I don't think the Bucs are going to lose. I'm going with the Saints. Looking at how they looked last week, this game's at home. Falcons are in a bad way quarterback-wise. I'm going with the Saints, and the Saints could still get a wild card spot. Seahawks Cardinals, I mean, this could be trouble. Arizona, this is in Arizona. Arizona just beat Philly last week. This could be trouble. Seattle better come to play. I think they will. I'm going with the Seahawks over the Cardinals. Bears Packers. So all the Packers got to do is win, and they're in the playoffs. And I'm going to go on record right here as saying I don't think they're going to win. I'm going with the Bears to win this game. I think the Bears look better than the Packers right now. I think that Justin Fields is going to play better than Jordan Love, and I think the Bears are going to eliminate the Packers from playoff contention, which means I've got the Seahawks, I guess, getting into the playoffs because I got them beating Arizona. Chiefs Chargers. Chiefs are playing their backups, and I still think they're going to win. I'm going with the Chiefs. Broncos Raiders. Raiders. Who cares? Eagles Giants. Surely the Eagles. You can't, I mean, maybe they can all go to a movie together before the game, do some team building. Maybe they can all have a sleepover at somebody's house, do a little team building. AJ will get up and give them a speech where he just says basic things that everybody knows he's going to say, and that's going to motivate the Eagles to go out and beat Tyrod Taylor and the Giants. Rams 49ers, both teams playing their backups. Give me the 49ers. Cowboys Commanders. Cowboys, all they need to do is win, and they clinch their division, so I got the Cowboys. And then Sunday night's the big one, Bills Dolphins, and I'm going with the Bills. I think the Bills are going to win the AFC East. After all of this, I think the Bills are going to beat the Dolphins in Miami. Miami's going to have to go in as a wild card team, and the Bills are going to get to play a playoff game in that home stadium where things tend to get loud. Okay, and then last but not least, Titans Jags. Yes, there is a part of me that would laugh my head off if the Titans beat the Jaguars and in doing so kick them out of the playoffs. I'm not going to lie. There is a part of that would feel great in the moment. It's like that. It would be like having Mexican food for lunch. Beating the Jags on Sunday would feel like eating Mexican food for lunch. It would feel great while you're doing it. You would love it while it was happening. But later on, it'll have you a little upset the rest of the day. Because the lowest the Titans can go in the draft is pick 8, but I think 8 might be too low to get one of those tackles. I don't know. So yes, beating the Jaguars, it would be funny. It would feel good in the moment. But later on, it would come back to bite you. So I think the Jaguars, there's too much on the line for Jacksonville. I think Trevor Lawrence will play. I think the Jaguars will win a low-scoring, of course, game 20-13. As we leave today, I'm looking at my top 10 because this could be it, guys. This could be like was it Boys to Men who sang, "Although we've come to the end of the road." This could be the end of the road with Derrick Henry. So here are, and for those who are listening on Spotify and not watching, I will describe. But if you're watching, you're going to be able to see it. Top 10 Derrick Henry plays. Number 10, you all know this one's going to be on here. From the 2020 season, the stiff arm of doom to Josh Norman. I know it didn't count because there was a penalty, but just to see one human being impose their will on another human being like that, especially Josh Norman, likes to run his mouth. That one's number 10. Number 9, from the playoffs, 2019 season. This is the run that set up a touchdown on 3rd and 1. Derrick Henry just bouncing off defenders. And then there he goes. 40, 30, 20, 10. And then finally dragged down. That's my number 9 play. As I said earlier, just one of the best nights of Titans fandom in a long time. And that run was beautiful, especially after Earl Thomas said he wasn't going to do it. He said he wasn't going to do that to them, but he did it. That plays number 9 on my top 10. Number 8 from 2021 against the Seattle Seahawks. I believe it was week 2. Down by 2 touchdowns, and the King just takes that bad boy to the house, 60 yards. Gets us back in the game. Titans went on to win this game in overtime. Great stuff. Number 7 against the Ravens again, this time in 2020 in overtime. Game-winning touchdown run, Derrick Henry to the house. No fans in the building, but this was a game nobody thought the Titans would win, and they did. And then number 6 from 2019 against the Chiefs, regular season game. Again, a game nobody thought the Titans would win. Derrick Henry takes that bad boy to the house. This is number 6 on the list. Long touchdown run to get the Titans back on top over the Chiefs in the third quarter of that game. Number 5 against the Houston Texans, 94 yards to the house. Titans were on the brink of losing this game, and the way that he hits the Jets around midfield, because it looks like he's going to get tackled, and then he just takes off. Just a thing of beauty. People going nuts. Number 4, back to the playoff game against the Ravens. It's the jump pass to Corey Davis, which put the Titans on top 21-6. Derrick Henry's first touchdown pass of his career. He's had quite a few. Number 3, 2019 regular season finale against Houston. This was the run where Henry won the rushing title for the year, clinched a playoff berth for the Titans where they would go on to go to the AFC title game. What a great night that was, and what a season that was for Derrick Henry. Number 2, you already know, it's the 99-yarder. This was truly the beginning of the Derrick Henry era, because before this, he was still splitting reps with Dion Lewis. But after this run, it was all Derrick Henry. 99 yards, stiff-arming the Jaguars out of the stadium. That's number 2. And now at number 1, I'm biased on this one. And some of you are going to wonder why this is number 1. This is Monday Night Football against the Bills in 2021. I'm biased toward this one because I was at this game. And, you know, to see that live, because, surprise, we had looked horrible in that game before that. And when my guy took off, I think it was like, I don't know how long that run was, but when he took off, that place, I was just thinking about it, gives me chills. That place came unglued. About the time he hit the 40, and all that stood between him was like a safety, you knew this is a touchdown. Hitting the Jets, and he went on to have like 3 touchdowns that night. And I will always wonder how many yards he would have had that season if he hadn't got hurt. Because he already had nearly 1,000 when he got hurt. And I don't even think it was halfway through the season yet. But he could have had 2 straight 2,000-yard seasons. But we'll never know because he got hurt. But all-time great. And if this is it for him on Sunday, I should have worn my jersey today. I'll wear it Monday, no matter what happens. But if this is it for Derrick Henry and the Titans, what a run. I mean, just think about where we were when he got here and where we got to with him. Back to being competitive with anybody. 1 seed in the AFC title game. I mean, he was the main reason why it happened. And so, I mean, whether you think it's time or not, you know, still owe some gratitude to that man. What a run he's had, and whatever comes next, I will always root for the King. Thank you guys for joining me for Two Tone Talk podcast. This has been episode 69, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I'll be back Monday with episode 70, talking about whatever happens over the weekend. God bless you guys. This is a Two Tone Talk podcast where we're staying way too high on the wins, way too low on the losses. The Two Tone by God pod. Talk to you guys Monday. God bless you. Tighten up. Bye, everybody.
Feels like the world is picking on ya. Feels feels like it's picking on me, but trying to please everybody, that ain't no way to be. So many people try to get you to fit their mold. I think it's time for a change.